Today is April 15th, 2020, and today I will be doing a commemorative flyover description of the Ballantyne Resort Golf Course in Charlotte, North Carolina. The golf course and the adjacent buildings were originally owned by Smokey Bissell and the Bissell Corporation and sold a couple years ago to a new developer. The developer has since then determined that the golf course would be better suited to have additional office buildings, shopping, townhomes, and condos on the course instead of having a golf facility. So unfortunately, it's scheduled to be demolished in late 2020 or early 2021, but the exact timetable hasn't been determined yet. The golf course is a magnificent golf course. It's very well maintained. The staff is great. Larry, the starter, is probably one of the best in the business. I've played here hundreds of times. It's not the hardest golf course in the world, but the greens are definitely the great equalizer for this course. They're generally extremely fast, very sloped. Several of them have different tiers to them. So putting is a must. So let's get into the description of the golf course hole by hole, starting on the first hole, which is a straightaway par 4, pretty long, plays about 400 yards from the regular men's tees. It does slope a little bit right to left as you get near that fairway bunker, which is reachable, and I've been in several times. Your approach shot should favor the left-hand side of the fairway to a better angle into the green. The green is guarded by a very large bunker in the front right. The second hole is probably the hardest hole on the golf course. It is an elevated tee that requires a very good drive over 2 creeks to a very uphill fairway that is a dogleg right. The green is 2-tiered. There is a tier in the middle of the green. If the pin is in the front and you go long, you will have a very difficult downhill putt, which is extremely hard to stop before the hole. During the summertime, when the greens are rolling at about 11 or 12, it will be very easy to putt off the green if you are putting downhill. The third hole is a fairly narrow par 4 that slopes right to left. The second bunker, as we approach the second bunker, is no longer there. That's been filled in. Out of bounds and tree line to the left. The green is guarded by a huge bunker on the left, very long bunker, probably about 40 or 50 yards out if you're in the beginning of the bunker towards the fairway. The green has several different slopes on it, and it is a difficult putt depending on where that pin is. If the pin is in the front left, everything feeds from right to left as you hit the center of the green going down towards that left area. The fourth hole is a moderately averaged yardage par 3 that requires a tee shot over a creek. It's guarded by 2 bunkers on the left and the right. The right bunker is fairly deep. The green runs from from back to front. So again, if you go long on this, you will be putting downhill. It's not as severe as the second hole. But if you're going to miss the green, you do want to miss it short, if anything. You don't want to go long, and you don't want to be up on that hill there because it's an impossible chip shot to get it close to the pin. The fifth hole is a fairly short par 5 that has an extreme slope in the fairway from right to left. If you hit it too far down the left-hand side, you could end up in the tree line on the left, as there is a large area that is below the fairway that runs into the woods, so you have to be careful if you play a draw not to hit it too far towards the center or to the left of the fairway, because it will roll out of the fairway and into that depression area. Your your approach shot should favor the left-hand side of the fairway for an angle. There are several slopes on this green as well, depending on where the flag is. The green is guarded by a bunker on the right. The sixth hole is a fairly long par 4. It's usually in excess of 400 yards. It is fairly straight away, and right about here there is a hill. If you can hit about 3/4 of the way down the fairway and make that hill, you'll get additional roll. But you have to be careful because as you come down that hill, it feeds severely to the right, so you could be down in the rough area over here. Your approach shot should favor the left-hand side as you have a better angle into the green. The 7th hole is a average yardage par 3 downhill, guarded by a bunker on the left and the right. The pin being in the middle, if you land the ball on the left-hand side of the pin, it should feed to the right towards the center. It does slope off in the back, towards the middle, towards the back. So if the pin's in front, you don't want to go long. You're better off going short there. You can see that ridge right there, just in back of the pin, that feeds away from the hole going towards the back. So you don't want to go long unless the pin's back there. The 8th hole is a short par 4. If the tee boxes are playing up, some of the big hitters can decide to go for the green. The fairway slopes left to right. It's guarded by 2 bunkers to the left and right there. It's I don't know if this picture does it exact justice. It's a little bit more narrow opening there, so it's difficult to get in there. Your approach shot should favor a little bit more of the center to the right-hand side, depending on where the flag is. And there is a little bit of a tear in the middle of that green, but not as severe as some of the other greens. The 9th hole is a dogleg right par 4. Up in the tree line there's Smokey Bissell's house on the right there. If you can drive it, it slopes right to left, but there is a hill right about here that if you can catch that hill, it'll feed down and give you some extra roll and make your approach shot a little bit more accessible, a little bit less yardage. The green is guarded by bunkers on the left and the right. The left-hand side bunker, they're both very large bunkers. There is a tier in the middle of that green. It slopes from back to front. If the pin is in the front, again, you don't want to go long. It's going to be a common theme for this golf course, is that many of the greens do slope from back to front. The 10th hole is a par 3 that goes over water. The tee boxes are usually a little bit more over toward the right. Very rarely we tee off from this area here. It's usually over the longest part of the water. The green is guarded by a bunker in the front. It usually plays about 140 to 150 yards. The further right you go, the more water you have to carry. The green has a tier in the middle of the green. So to the right of where that flag was is it feeds to the right. To the left of the flag feeds to the left. So if you're on either side of that flag, it's going to run away from the hole. So it's you got to be very difficult where you land that shot. The 11th hole is a little bit of a dogleg left. It's a short par 4. The bunker is reachable on your drive. If you can drive it over that bunker and land on the downslope, you'll get some additional roll and have a very short approach shot into the green. Your fairway shot doesn't really favor left or right. If the pin is obviously towards the right hand side, you want to be on the left hand side of the fairway. If the pin's in the middle, you kind of want to be over towards the middle of the fairway. It is guarded by a bunker on the right. It's a fairly deep bunker. The 12th hole is a short par 5, but it is all uphill, and the drive is slightly over water. You're not going to get a lot of roll on your drive, as, like I said, this is uphill. That bunker to the right is not very reachable unless you are a really big hitter. The bunker is probably about 260 to 270 yards uphill to the right. I've played with a few guys that have come close to hitting in that bunker, but it's very difficult to hit that bunker. I don't think it's very used. It is uphill. It doesn't really feed left to right too much. The green is difficult. It's got a little bit of a false front right about here. If you land it short and the greens are rolling extremely fast, or it's very dry, you're gonna have your ball roll back into the fringe area here and back into the fairway a little bit. You want to kind of get it over into the land in the middle of the green, so you can avoid that. The building in the background was the Bright House building, which is the former MetLife building. My old office was on the 10th floor, and I sat near the balcony. It was great watching some of the people finish on 12, and this is the 13th hole, which is a elevated tee box downhill, fairly short. It ranges anywhere from 125 to about 145 to 155 yards downhill. You will club down probably one club due to the elevation changes. The green is guarded by bunkers on the left and the right. There is a tier in the middle of the green where that flag is right now. And there's a backstop, so if you go long, it'll feed down off that hill and come back a little bit. If you go too far to the right of that pin, it'll feed away from the hole. And if you go too far left where that pin is, it'll feed to the left of that hole, and you'll have an uphill putt both ways. So generally, when we play, the pin is usually in this area over here, or it's tucked behind the bunker a little bit, and it looks a little bit more deceiving from the tee box. It looks like it's right behind the bunker, but there is a little bit of a landing area where you can go over that bunker. The 14th hole is a average sized par 5, dogleg right. The fairway slopes a little bit left to right here, out of bounds, and the tree line is onto the right, so you got to be careful not to hit it too far to the right. It's downhill once you hit the cart path. It is reachable in 2 for some of the big hitters. Your approach shot should favor the left-hand side, so you won't have to chip or pitch over those bunkers that guard it on the right. There is a tier in the middle of that green. It's not as severe, but if you do go long, it'll jet out towards the back of the green, and you'll have a much longer putt. The 16th hole is one of the more difficult par 4s on the golf course. It's pretty long, it's narrow, it slopes pretty good left to right. So if you do play a fade, or if you have a slice and you put it in the middle of the fairway, you'll end up in the tree line or in the creek to the right. So you got to be careful where you place your drive if you play a fade or a slice. The green has several different slopes on it. It's guarded by a bunker on the right. That's a pretty deep bunker. Depending on where the flag is, you have to maneuver several different areas of slope that make this green very difficult to putt. The 16th hole is a elevated tee box to a severe downhill. It's a long par 3. It usually plays about 190 yards plus, but you're at about 1.5 club lengths, probably less from that yardage, depending on where the tee box is. It is guarded by a huge bunker on the left. There's not a lot of slope on this golf course, but the length is what makes this hole a little bit more tricky. The 17th hole and the last par 5 is a pretty straightaway par 5. It's fairly short. A good drive is necessary, though, because the fairway does slope from right to left. So if you play a draw or a hook and you land it in the middle towards left on the fairway, you could end up over here. There's a bunch of reeds here that they usually trim down in the summertime, but they grow back usually. Your ball could end up in the water even if it hits the fairway with a draw or a hook. So you got to be careful of where you land your tee shot. The green is guarded by 2 bunkers in the front and 1 towards the back right. Very narrow landing areas here, depending on where your approach shot is and where the pin is. You could end up in either of those bunkers. The green is fairly straightforward. The 18th and the finishing hole is a signature par 4, elevated tee box that goes over a creek. Your tee shot is interesting here because some of the big hitters will not use driver on this, because as you approach the fairway, there is a fairway length size bunker here that is has a pond on the other side of it. You could end up either in the pond or in the sand, and if you're in the sand back here, you will have to navigate probably about 100 to 125 yard shot all over sand onto a very difficult green. So a lot of guys will hit a 3-wood, 5-wood, or if you're a really big hitter, even a 4-iron or 3-iron, or maybe a hybrid. The hotel is in the background there. The Ballantyne Resort Hotel is back there. The green is very difficult. It's got a lot of different slopes on it. Where the pin is there, it's kind of in the middle of the green. It does slope from back to front. You do not want to leave it back here towards the right if the pin is where it is, because it's all downhill. If the pin is towards the front of the green, you don't want to go too long, because that's going to be a very difficult putt too. So this concludes the flyover demonstration of the Ballantyne Resort Golf Course. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I am going to miss this golf course once it's demolished. And if you get a chance, go out and play it. It's a great course.